Hey, I'm Karen Rudolf, and I support women embracing their sassy confidence, their classy wisdom, and their bold transformation.
You're watching Success, Motivation, and Inspiration, where we share interviews with incredible leaders who are crushing it in life and business.
Hey, welcome to the show. It's so good to see you today, Karen. How's everything going for you?
It's going amazingly awesome. Thank you. Just being here just was the highlight of my day. So thank you.
Man, that's awesome. I was checking you out online after we got the application process and everything, and you were really crushing it. You're putting out a new course, and what actually sparked your journey into holistic transformation? Holistic with a double W.
Wow, I started off life as a nurse. Well, actually, it goes back before my nursing career because I was always very curious and I always played with manipulative puzzles. And as a result of that, I got into later in life creative problem solving. But I used to ask a million questions, and my dad would say, go outside and play. You're asking too many questions, which in essence, as a young child, that basically told my little mind that I wasn't enough. I wasn't worthy enough of getting a response. And that's sadly the route I took. And then fast forward, I went into nursing, and the doctor started giving me prescriptions rather, sorry, to give to the clients, the patients that were leaving. And I would look at it and I would say, but you're not getting to the root cause. Like, what is this about? Oh, shut up and just do your job, or there's other people that will take your job. And again, that just threw me into more of that not enough conversation. And I was very curious as to, like, there's got to be a better way of getting to the root cause. There's a time and place for Western medicine, but I started looking into holistic. So the basis of everything I do today comes from that holistic, and it begins with self, the inner stories we tell ourselves, like as if the bad enough, not enough, or not worthy, or I'm not loved, and so on and so forth. So that was the beginning of it. And then my mom, fast forward, I mean, I'm a product of my environment. My mother had this underlying root conversation of not being enough, not loved, and she became a hypochondriac as a result of it. And she had no one to show her paintings to, which she started at 72 years of age. And she would go to the doctor, I have a migraine, and they're like, come on in. And what do? They treat the symptom. They would ooh and ah over her painting,
Yeah.
and give her a prescription. And then 2 weeks later, she'd have a new painting, no one to show it to, and she'd call them up and say, oh, the prescription you gave me for the migraine, I'm now nauseous. Well, come on in, and we'll, ooh, ah. And it went on until one day I didn't hear from my mother. And I thought, this is odd. She calls me every day complaining about something. And I called her up, and she was slurring her words. I dropped everything, and she was on the floor, curled up in a fetal position. She had 19 medications surrounding her. And I said, the buck stops here, not on my
Wow.
watch. And that's what inspired me to become a catalyst for change.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love that there's a reason behind it. We get so many coaches, consultants, motivational speakers, people that are trying to make something of themselves, but really don't have the driving reason behind that. So I love that you connected that story. I don't know if you know any of my history, but I owned a cosmetic medical laser clinic and a company that manufactured bioidentical injectable research peptides. So things that were, a lot of, you hear hormone replacement clinics now that are doing the testosterone and growth hormone and those type of things for anti-aging. We were doing peptides that were, research peptides that were not classified legally for human use, but stuff that was natural, natural protein peptides. But I got a fax one day that they had scheduled all the products that we were selling, that we were manufacturing, and it was now a felony to possess. We dumped $30,000 worth of wholesale product, just lost everything overnight because the DEA, the American Medical Association, all these places want to push drugs that are profit centers, not actually help people, as far as the medication goes. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
I mean, I would probably still be in that industry making good money, but not happy if I was, if that hadn't all happened. So it's good to see, even when I was diagnosed with brain cancer, we had one of the doctors that worked for me said, if he got diagnosed with cancer and, if him or his family got diagnosed with cancer, he said, I would not let them treat me in the United States with the treatments we are required to provide here. So I said, I don't know what I would do, but I would not let them touch me in the USA. I know I was a little bit off track here, but kind of cool to see you're doing stuff on the holistic side as well when trying to figure out how to help people not just do the drugs.
Exactly. Exactly.
What does sassy, classy, and bold look like in real life to you?
It looks like I go back to Shakespeare, and Shakespeare said in the play Hamlet in 1533, I believe it was, "To thine own self be true." And so many people don't know who they are, what they're about, or what keeps them ticking, or what motivates them to drive them to keep ticking. It could be their purpose, it could be anything. But, when you know yourself, I believe you not only know others, but you're able to step into your confidence and your next steps with those bold actions and really transform your life. And when you transform your life, you're healing your body, yourself, because the body's always talking. Whether we choose to listen or not, that's a whole nother story, but the body is always talking. So, those little aches and pains, low back pain is usually around money. Shoulder pain is usually about, oh, you're taking on too much and carrying the weight of the world. And it just, when you start looking at it from a different perspective, you're also hearing what other people are saying, or rather not saying to you when you know yourself.
Now, just talking about pain, I knew I actually saw you had a major horse riding accident in Costa Rica. I'm heading out to Costa Rica in the next just under 2 months here. And yeah, I saw Costa Rica and then I was looking into it. I was going, how did your horseback accident in Costa Rica actually shape your outlook?
Well, actually, resilience for sure. I have horses. I live in Sarasota, Florida, and I have horses here. So I'm not a stranger to horses. And after COVID, I threw myself into my work during COVID. And after COVID, I decided that I wanted to get out and meet people. And I decided to sign up for a retreat. And I didn't know anybody on the retreat, but they knew that I loved horses. And one of their draws to me to sign up for this retreat in Costa Rica was, oh, we're going horseback riding on the water, at sunrise, sunset, which is one of my favorite things to do. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And I want some of that. But, yeah, I'm going to sign up. And the second day we were down in Costa Rica was the day we were going to go horseback riding. And intuitively, I kept getting this hit, don't go, don't go, don't go. And I'm like, and I usually listen to my intuition. I'm very intuitive. And I allowed myself to be talked into going by listening to what other people's opinions were and thoughts were. And I know better. However, it was a lot of pressure. And I said, okay. And shortly into the ride, the horse was not going along the path of the water. It was getting away from the water. And as I said, I'm not a stranger to horses. I'm saying this horse has sore feet. And everybody's like, come on, Karen, come on. And they're pushing me to go. And I'm like, no, I won't do that to this animal. And in third world countries, they don't treat animals the way we do here in the States. And we have an expectation when we leave that everything's going to be the same. Well, that's not the truth, right? So I was not about to inflict pain on the horse. When we get up to the group and we're all about set to take off again, and a wave hit the back of the horse's feet. The horse spun around to look at the salt, because if you look at our nails are pure protein. If you were to rip out a nail and put salt water on it, it would be super painful. And the guide was like, oh yeah, this horse that you're on loses his shoes all the time. Well, that's ripping a nail. And the salt water was very painful. He spun around. I went 6 feet up in the air, landed on my butt, totally severed the ball of my left hip off, fractured my pelvis, and dislocated my back. Went under surgery, which was a whole nother trip, just getting to the hospital, which was 2 hours away on a bumpy dirt road. So it was all an experience. Now, when I got there, the surgeon said, we're going to do everything we can to put you back together, but there's a good chance that you might not be walking again. And I went, that's your diagnosis. It doesn't have to be my prognosis.
Yeah.
Your prognosis doesn't have to be my diagnosis, excuse me. And I was like, watch me. I've always been that watch me sort of personality, because I believe the mind is a very powerful tool. So as I was recovering, I'm sitting there and I'm very spiritual, and I'm laying in a room. I don't speak Spanish. And I was there for 3.5 weeks. And I remember looking out the window, and of course, in my brain, it's a mountain, but of course, Costa Rica, it's a just like a little bump in the road.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, I remember scripture saying, like, how do you get over, when you're brought to the mountain, how do you get to the other side? And instead of looking at the whole mountain, you take, with the faith of a mustard seed, you take it one step at a time. And I'm looking down at my feet as I'm saying that, and one little toe is just giving this little baby wiggle. And I'm thinking, okay, Karen, breathe deep, right? And I kept affirming, to myself, my body's healing every day in every way on a cellular level, and I will be walking. My body's healing every day in every way on a cellular level, and I will be walking. And with it was a journey, but the whole, I always look for a silver lining. There's always a silver lining, no matter how
Yeah.
much pain is involved, no matter how much suffering is involved. How we choose to look at it, it's always perception,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
where we're going to that one, I got goosebumps. How we choose to look at it and view it is going to be affecting the outcome we receive. And getting home was a challenge, especially having to be flat. By the time I made it to Sarasota, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I sat, supposed to be flat now, right? No pressure on my hips whatsoever. And I was sitting for 8 hours in the emergency room here. And I was like, there's got to
Wow.
be a better way. There's got to be. And the tears are coming down my face. And I'm saying, all I want is a Tylenol. I'm not asking for drugs. And they
Yeah.
kept telling me, you got to wait, you got to wait. So it was a totally different experience. But the silver lining for me was really getting resilience, like, and the mind just constantly saying, I am not going to let this get me down. But my body was also talking because I was always going, 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 and I wasn't stopping. I
Yeah.
wasn't learning to rest. I was like, oh, I could do this, I could do that, because I'm a creative and I love creating things, and I'm an ideator and I come up with ideas all the time. And sometimes rest and relaxation is not sometimes, it is just as important as creating and mastering something.
That's and you mentioned faith. Is that I love Jesus. I believe I was created by the same God that created the entire universe, was created in his image. Such
Yeah.
a feeling of going, listen, I know maybe something sucks in my life right now, but I know it's meant to be good. Are you a believer as well?
I am a believer, and that's what keeps me going, because when I had my divorce in 2004, I was a doormat. I was a people pleaser, a former reformed people pleaser now, but I was a people pleaser back then. And I mean, I was a doormat, so I was getting walked over all the time. And during the course of my divorce, I was like, why would any God do this? That's the first place I went. And I started pointing fingers outside of myself and looking outside of myself for answers. And I studied world religions, looking for the answer to what was going on. And it wasn't until the attorney said to me, actually, it was my paralegal. He was amazing. And he said to me, if you don't get your act together and stop victimizing yourself, I have 3 children, 3 small children at that point. He said, the courts are going to give your children away. And at that point, my former husband was going after the kids. And I said, over my dead body, there's no way this is going to happen. So it was like instantly, I remember saying, okay, God, who do I have to become in order to keep my children with me? And when I stopped and thought about it, it was like, I'm their first teacher. I'm their first
Yeah.
mentor. What am I teaching them by being the victim and the people pleaser and so on and so forth? And I delved into communication courses, and I said, I will never be out of communication again. I will never be without a voice again. And I did a lot of personal growth and development at that time. Huge journey that way. I never waste time in my car. I'm always listening to some audio,
Yeah.
much to the kids' chagrin. Back in the day, I was,
Highway University, huh?
yeah.
Audiobooks.
So it really shifted my whole perspective. And I remember landing in a space where I took on a connected with Reverend Alma, who was at the time talking about meditation and visualization. It was right around the time when the movie The Secret came out. I was like, what is that stuff? Like, I want to know more about that. And I didn't realize how much it was related to scripture. And I just started delving in, and she says, well, you should take the journey with me. And I said, okay, what's involved? And she says, well, pick 2 from column A the first 6 months and 2 from and I went, no, I want the whole thing. And I don't care how long it takes. So I delved into that, which the outcome was really, I was just having this conversation with somebody today. As a matter of fact, what I learned from that, the silver lining from that whole experience of it's when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. But then what happens is you get to that space where you become equals, and then you're teaching the teacher, and then you're giving as well as receiving. And when I learned to give and receive, not just to my spiritual mentor, I learned non-judgment. I complimented somebody on a shirt today. That's a judgment, whether we realize it or not. But there's always a yin and a yang, a light and a darkness, right? And a lot of people think, well, it's always negative. No, it's a judgment. I'm still human. I still judge, but it doesn't mean I have to get caught up in the negative, in the darkness. I can step back into the light, can not just not judge, but I can forgive not just myself but others. And that's how I was able to move through a horrific divorce. I learned to step into forgiveness, and whether he realized it or not, he doesn't have to know that I did. So I've moved on because it cuts the ties that bond us together, that keep us in that victimhood. And I refuse to go there, because that alone will create dis-ease in your body.
Yes, ma'am. Now, you said something. I was actually quoted. I had a band out of Europe had reached out and asked if I'd do a quote for a song. They wanted to have me say something. I'd do like a studio thing and then put that in their song. But the message that I told them was the difference between winners and losers is losers use their past as an excuse, and winners use it as a reason to become something better. Thought that was kind of a neat thing that you seems like we're right on the same page on all of this.
Absolutely, because that's exactly where I don't want to call it preaching, but that's where I speak from, because I speak from a heart space. I'm very open-hearted. I'm very open-minded, and I believe that vulnerability is a gift. And I find the more vulnerable I am, that's really stepping into the sassy aspect of life, is opportunities show up, gold shows up, because people are attracted to that. They learn from us, like we're mentors and reflections of each other, mirrors of each other, for lack of better.
When did you realize that you were meant to guide others through personal growth?
When, as I said a little earlier, when my mother was on the floor with the 19 medications, it was right around the time with my horse, and what you're showing there is a horse head. As part of my Tranquil SOULutions logo, my horse got struck by lightning at the same time. And the vet told me, put him down. You're going through a divorce. You've got 3 kids. It's going to cost a fortune. And I mentioned earlier, I'm an intuitive. And I remember closing my eyes and standing before the vet. And all of a sudden, my eyes opened immediately. I don't know where it came from, but I said, no, he's not going to die. He and I are going to become catalysts for change. And in that moment, I knew I was meant for something bigger and greater in my life. And that's from that point on, I have just been rocking out with the holistic, shifting energy and perceptions, which takes me to, what I've created, about to launch any day now. So, which is the Tranquil SOULutions Clarity Tool. And it's all about shifting perception, and it's a mirror of our inner compass. And the more we reflect and take the time to pause, we're not taught to pause in life. We're going, going, going in today's world, especially, with electronics and the phone and the computers and the TVs. And you see the kids with the gaming all the time. I mean, they don't pause to reflect. The answers are within. So this tool is meant to really, it's 15 years in the making. I have been doing it with a physical concept. I've traveled globally with it, and I'm really proud of what we've created. It's that inner guidance that's going to support people in expanding their knowing and creating the clarity within their lives.
Now, I want to just suggest if you're somebody watching this show right now on Amazon Fire TV, you're on a newer smart TV, pause the screen, scroll down. There's clickable links that'll be below this where you can go ahead and get a hold of copies of her book. But then also, if we end up working together, putting you in Newswire magazine, I would love to have that course or at least a free discovery call where they can read through your article, maybe watch the TV show, read the article, and then click to book a call. Would you be willing to do a free discovery call with somebody to see if that's somebody you could work with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a giver, right? And whether I receive from you or somebody else, it's going to come back to me tenfold. That's it works, right? So for me, it's just an extension. All of what I do is an extension of really creating that awareness within people to get to know yourself. Because as I've said earlier, the more you know yourself, the more you're able to listen to what your body's saying. And I do a lot of stress relief work. I did a lot of stress before COVID. I did a lot of stress relief work with the horses trauma clearing in particular, because all of those stories from our past, if you're continually holding on to them, are going to present themselves not only in your future, but into all your relationships. And I made a promise to myself years ago that I was not going to be bringing any of that old stuff forward into relationship. And I was going to create a better, more empowered relationship with my children, so because it begins and ends with self, and then it goes to our family, and then it goes to our out into the world. So yeah. So for me, it's about getting the message out there. Absolutely.
Well, there's something to be said for not taking your circumstances or trauma and making that your identity. For example, you're somebody, I survived brain cancer, quite a few different things, child abuse as a kid, that went through some real bad stuff.
Therapy too.
But when you see people that are winning and they never, even you see somebody who is crushing it, they've got a great life and they get cancer. They don't say, my cancer is making, how you doing? I can't, I'm going back for my cancer treatment. They're not taking ownership of my cancer, my whatever sucks that just happened to me. They're going, I've got some stuff I'm fighting with here, but my life is doing good. So I love that you mentioned that as well about just your outlook and focusing on the good stuff and letting the other junk that happens to you just be junk that happens to you.
Exactly. Because if you get into a space of law of attraction, let's say, let's just touch on that for a minute, right? Yeah. So what you think about, you bring about. The more you're owning my cancer, you're telling your brain indirectly, you're telling every cell of your body, because like attracts like, you're telling every cell of your body that, oh, it's already like got a stamp on it. There's my identity, my cancer. Yep. I've been riddled with whatever, and I'm not going to let that define me. I didn't let my hips define me. I don't let asthma define me. I don't let, the things that come into me. I don't let my divorce define me. Actually, I remember, because I'm a creative, I went to creative problem solving, and this might speak into this a little bit more, because I go to creative problem solving communities. I was in one in Toronto called Mind Camp, which is sadly just ended last year because the owner has retired. We as facilitators would go and facilitate, but then we would also be part of the community. And I remember very vividly, it was so profound. One of the presenters had given us a task to do a timeline. And above the timeline, all the positive things that happen in your life, and below it, all the negative things that happen in your life. And I remember writing mine and then sharing it. You had to switch with your partner, right? And the partner next to me was a gentleman that I had never met before. And on the bottom, way at the bottom of his list was his divorce. And I looked at him, he looked at mine, and mine was at the way top. And I said, had I not had that divorce, he was baffled. Had I not had that divorce, it's horrific, and it went on for 4 years. It was very costly. Had I not had that experience, it wouldn't bring me to whom and where I am today.
This interview is sponsored by Newswire magazine. We celebrate the entrepreneurs and thought leaders shaping the future. Those who don't just adapt, but innovate. Who inspire others to think bigger, lead boldly, and create lasting change. Only a select few are featured in Newswire magazine. And for those who earn a place on the cover, the opportunities are unmatched. Your story shared with a global audience. Your achievements celebrated on national billboards, reaching millions. Every leader has a story. Every vision deserves a platform. Who will rise to the top? Stay tuned. You're witnessing greatness unfold.
Hey, welcome back to Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. We're on with Karen Rudolf. I've got so many questions for you, and I think we're probably going to run out of time before the TV show is over here, but I would love to stay connected and
Absolutely.
got a whole lot more to ask you, though. How can entrepreneurs show up as their bold, authentic selves?
By choosing, number one, declaring it and choosing it, because the power of the word, right? In the beginning was the word, the power of a word, abracadabra. What are you bringing into your life? What are you bringing? What do you want? Most people in life, if I ask them that question, they get all nervous and jerky. And most people know what they don't want because they're coming from past based experiences rather than what they do want and looking at the opposite of that, right? Which could be that simple. So I always say, write it down. When you write something down, just the physical act of writing, visualizing, speaking it out loud and hearing it, using those three senses are now communicating to your brain to start creating new neural pathways.
And then can you go into some of the modalities and tools, maybe talking about what is a heart-based mind shift and how does it help create change?
Heart based for me is the authenticity. It's coming from that knowing. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I was intuitive as a kid, and I thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't know what it was. Nobody talked about it, and I wasn't tapping into it. And then when I fast forward, I get married, and my former husband is like, "Can you turn it off? You're freaking me out." And I was like, "There's something wrong with me." And I was already in that not enough conversation. And that was like, there's something even worse with me going on. And it wasn't until later in life, so it's possible to do it at any time, any stage in life. It's beginning to really reflect and look at yourself. Is there something truly wrong with me? Well, no, we don't need to be fixed. We're whole, complete, perfect right here, right now. And that's granted to us with every birth. So if I shift the perspective and look at it from that perspective, I should say, then I'm already whole and complete. What can I always say, what can I build with that? That's my next book coming out next year is Spiraling. It's going to be called Spiraling Up. And it's like, what can we build with our experiences moving forward? Because they're all lessons. So you have great lessons in your life. It's not all negative. Start focusing on the good and what can you build with that? What can you create with that? And then for me, heart-based is being of service. So if I want to be of service and give of myself, as I said earlier, I know it's going to come back to me, whether it comes back to me from you directly, whether or not it comes back to me financially, whether it comes back, it's going to come back in some way, shape, or form because that's the way the universe works. And I trust that.
The more I do for you, give and give and give, even if you do nothing for me in return, I will get that back just by putting good out there and doing good stuff.
I love that kind of thing, because everything is energy. Everything is energy. So the more energy you put out, and energy comes in many forms. Energy is money, right? Money comes and goes. When you give, you get back, right? And it's not just money, it's kindness. It could be a smile. It could be anything. It's going to come back tenfold. So why not? It's fun.
Now, yeah. Now talk about RIM, NLP, HeartMath. How do those all work together in your programs?
Those are tools that I use. The RIM is regenerating images in memory. I got a mastery in that. That was for me translated to use, as I shared earlier, with the trauma things that I did alongside the horses, clearing people of their old stories. HeartMath is more stress for me, stress related, getting people back into their body, back into their heart space. Some of the greats use it. Greg Braden, I'm a huge fan of him, scientist. You hear him talk about it all the time. You hear greats like Joe Dispenza talking about it all the time. And there's so many other people that are HeartMath trained that really support you getting back into your body and more importantly into your heart space because there's 13 inches between your minds and your heart, and sometimes just dropping down to the chatter will get you back into another space. And then the other one was NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, is the way we talk to each other. So for me, I started out, as I said, in nursing. I took on communication courses. It was communicating back and forth to people, but then it became communicating to self. holistically. And when you look at my copy, I always put a W in quotes before the word holistic, because
So that
we're whole people. It's the whole of the person. It's the whole of the spiritual. It's the whole of the body, mind, and spirit. Physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So when I look at clients, I took all of those things to create the alignment within myself to support those to align with themselves, as like attracts like. So those are the people that find me, are the ones that are looking to align it. Very visual. And I started mind mapping for one of my daughters. God, it's got to be about 33 years ago. And I use that in my business every day, because what I'll do is I'll visually map out a client's journey, and I'll see the connections because it represents right and left brain. So in holistic and whole brain thinking, you might be right brain prominent, but you're articulating in a left brain way. You're not seeing that as readily as you would. I'm getting a little complicated here, forgive me, but that excites me. All of this excites me. When I was going through my divorce, I couldn't get enough of quantum physics and neuroscience. And I was like, okay, God, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why you're putting this in my path. But everything that I've taken on and all the things that you just listed are basically what has gotten me to where I am today. And I believe that's part of all. I don't believe, I know it's part of all of what went into from heart space into the Tranquil SOULutions clarity tool that's coming out. All of the frameworks for everything I've ever done is put into that program.
Now, one of the things that I noticed on your website that was kind of cool is you'll capitalize some of the words, like parts of a word, and I was going to ask you what makes your Tranquil SOULutions, it's a capital SOUL soul. What makes your Tranquil SOULutions approach different from traditional coaching?
Bernie Dorman. I'll never forget Bernie Dorman. I went after my divorce. Took on coaching because it was like my next best step was, okay, I guess I'm going to be a coach. And when I take things on, I take them on wholeheartedly. And from communication, I really wanted to contribute and be of service to others. And Bernie Dorman, I was living in Orlando. He was from CEO Space. He came to Orlando and he sat me down and he's like, I have 10,000 coaches in my program. What? He was in my face. What's going to make you different? Those 10,000. And I went from up here. I'm so excited to splat on the floor because my background conversation was not enough. And I
Yeah.
started thinking about that. And I said, okay, what can I build with that? What's going to make me different than everybody else? And I started looking, and I remember writing a list, and this might support your listening audience as well. I remember starting a list of all of my attributes as opposed to the things that I'm not capable of doing or that I don't think are good enough, but all my strengths. So when I started looking at my strengths, and of course I was doing 6 hours of carpooling, that was top of the list. I'm like, what can I build with this? Well, I don't want to be a taxi cab driver for the rest of my life. Scratch that one off. But when I started looking at all of my other things, I'm like, yeah, I serve holistically on the mind, body, spirit, the physical, mental, emotional aspects of life. So that's a soul level for me. That's the inner works, right? As above, so below. So for me, moving that forward was soul. It got confused with soul, SOL, all the time. So I capitalized it just to bring attention to it is soulful work, right? So it is play work. And it's not significant work unless you make it significant. When it's in a playful context, you're more likely to take it on and make a difference in your life.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you break down maybe your target avatar, whether that's down to age, gender, marital status, the way they vote, their faith, but who gets the most who gets the most benefit from working with you?
Those that are willing to want to, they're normally women, but yet men show up all the time. So I don't discriminate at all. But their age group, usually from 40 to 65 years of age, they are people who are stopped and stuck in life because of their stuckness. They are in their heads consistently and they're looking for ways and means to get out of it. So I give them a playful way of looking in through the sassy, classy, bold, transformational aspect of life by looking at it through a different lens, a different perspective. So they are usually entrepreneurs that they're stuck because they feel that they're taking on the weight of the world, and then they have to go home and be a mom or be a dad. And, they're exhausted and they don't know how to get out of that overwhelmed feeling. So we put it into a different perspective for them in a different framework to expand and look at a place from a holistic perspective of what's possible for them moving forward. So it's a lot of stress management as well, and giving them tools and techniques that work. One of the tools that I have always gotten highly rave reviews over, and again, playful butterfly, right? I'm a nature girl. And if I look to nature and I see butterflies around me, I'm like, okay, I know I'm aligned. Thank you, because the universe is always giving messages. So I created the butterfly technique, which is stop, change, and shift. So when you're stressing out, the stop is the pause. Take a deep breath. When you're overwhelmed, just that deep breath, 2 to 3 deep breaths, you're sending oxygen to your brain, which gives you enough time to recalibrate and reset yourself, to shift the energy. Remember, I said everything is energy. So stop, change, right? You're changing the energy that's happening right now. And then pausing and creating a new energy moving forward, a new direction moving forward. Stop, change, and shift. And that has just been one of the biggest takeaways that all my clients walk away with and always come back and tell me, oh my God, it works.
For the client that you just, that perfect type of client you just broke it down, explained who they are. Give me one more small, powerful practice you recommend to that specific type of a client. Something to make their life better.
Yeah. Pause, take a pause break and really reflect on what's working and what's not. Not only what's working and what's not, is it serving yourself first and foremost? There's a difference between selfish and selfless. So is it serving you first and your well-being? Are you creating boundaries that are going to serve what you're up to, what you're providing for others out there in the world?
Powerful. Thanks so much, Karen. This has been an incredible interview.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. This episode was designed to help you level up. See you next time.